I'll just say a couple of things that need to be thought about if a school is taking on Talk for Writing. The first is we like to have Rhyme of the Week at Key Stage 1 and in early years, so children build up a bank of about 100, 120 rhymes and poems, just every day sitting on the carpet and learning Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, all the way through to some quite meaty poetry in Year 2. And then Poem of the Day at Key Stage 2, where every day a child chooses a poem that they want to perform or read for the class. That in itself is quite small, but you look at that over 7 years, that's an enormous input. The rhythms, the patterns, the tunes of the language, the imagery that's constantly going into the head. So we have our strong strand of enjoying and loving and sharing poetry. We also have a reading spine, and the reading spine is the backbone, if you like, of the English curriculum. This is where we're thinking about, right, by the time children leave this school, what are the key books and the key poems, the key stories, the key non-fiction texts that they must have experienced? When I was at school, I became a reader through Enid Blyton and through reading the Beano, but we never studied Enid Blyton in the class. I was provided with rich, meaty stuff. I remember doing Black Beauty, for instance. So in our primary schools, it's that big decision. It doesn't matter if kids are tucking their noses into every single, I don't know, David Walliams book or Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Our job as a teacher is to nudge them into a broader range, yes, for their independent reading, but catching a love of reading is going to be important. But when we're in class, we're going to challenge them. We're going to open their eyes to a full range of authors, full range of high quality texts, so that by the time they're in Year 6, we're able to be studying, appreciating and enjoying all sorts of high quality authors. It's the difference between saying, well, am I going to read them Captain Underpants in the classroom, or should I be reading Charlotte's Web? There is a decision to make. And I think it's a really interesting and exciting argument to have in the staff room. Each book that we study in class, that we introduce the children to, that we have as our daily class reader, each book must earn its place. I would have thought at least, say, 12 picture books a year in early years in Key Stage 1, and then moving into novels and picture books at Key Stage 2. But let's not forget, in terms of reception children, reading some chapter books to them. Simple things like Paddington, reception classes love being read to from a chapter book. It makes them feel grown up. Remember too that the pictures do the imagining for us, but of course, when we're having a chapter book read to us, we can't see the pictures. We have to do it in our head. So cognitively, imaginatively, it's a richer and deeper experience. And we know children get a lot of vocabulary from being read to. And it's important that we read a rich vein of high quality literature so they hear that vocabulary. And remember too, but the reading shapes and determines the writing. When you look at children who read an enormous amount, when you look at their writing, you can tell what they're reading. In Year 6, we can say, these lads, they're reading a lot of Anthony Horowitz because that's what they're writing like. They've internalized the imaginative world of Anthony Horowitz. They've internalized his sentence patterns, his written style. They're writing rather like it. By the same token, there'll be lots of kids, for instance, who read Jacqueline Wilson, and they write a little bit like that. So the reading shapes and determines the writing. So reading is important for all sorts of reasons. Reading is probably the prime thing that we do, apart from being kind, in primary schools. But also it will determine the writing. So we have a strong reading spine, high quality literature that we're going to hang our programme around. So we've got the reading spine, we've got Poems of the Week, and then we detail out, and it takes 2 or 3 years to do this, but we detail out the units of work that we're going to be studying. And those units become reasonably fixed. I mean, obviously, if you get bored with doing something or if you think it's not working, then change it. But there is a great advantage in knowing in Year 5, Term 1, I'm starting off with the Highwayman. And the advantage is this. I've taught it for 5 years. I know it extremely well. My medium-term plan is there. I have all the resources so that my time and energy is focused away from planning into all I have to do is to tweak that well-honed and refined unit, tweaking it for the class that I've got. So teachers have the energy, and the space to focus on what matters, which is teaching and learning rather than endlessly creating units of work. So we like to have a whole school programme. We have our reading spine, and then we have our poem of the week or rhyme of the week. Those are big tasks that take a number of years to get in place, but are well worth working at, so that we can begin to think about progression and secure that cumulative learning. By the time they reach year 6, almost every child, unless they have particular needs, will be at the top of the game. We know that. If we look at the talk for writing training centres and compare them to the national average, what we find is since 2016, over the last 3 years, we find that the progress made by the children has about doubled the rate in terms of the national average, and our average standards are well above the national average, which is extraordinary given that the schools that we work with in the main face significant challenges. St Matthew's in Birmingham, for instance, is 88% pupil premium. So we're having children who are from fairly poor backgrounds in nearly all our training centres, but the standards are higher than the national average. Why? They're higher because we have a proper English programme, we have cumulative learning going all the way through, and we expect every child to learn. Every child can learn, and if we get the teaching and learning and the progression right, and we have a rich, strong programme, almost every child, unless they have a significant learning issue, almost every child can succeed.